Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in this world you might be. My name is Jack Branch, and this is the Healthy Wealth Show, episode number 25. Can't believe actually 25 people have been willing to get on the gurney here and let me talk to them about their world and things going on. And today we have definitely two people, one that I've met and one that I'm getting to know more. And met this young lady out at a conference in Arizona where we have some mutual business interests together. And their story really resonated with me. And the more that I get to know the husband in this power couple, the more that I start to really think, man, I'm a chicken. And, I have moved to various places all around the country. But when I think you hear this story today, it's really going to resonate with you in a very unique way. So I want to introduce two friends of mine, Brad and Mary. Keel, how you guys doing?
Great.
Doing great.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I'm glad y'all spent some time. I met Mary in Arizona, and all she could do is keep talking about you, Brad. So I'm glad to finally put a face with the name. She was talking about just a myriad of things, and you could see the love in her eyes for this man. I'm like, I can't wait to meet this guy. I hope Renee talks about me like this. So we're calling this thing an epic journey, to San Francisco. So tell the viewers a little bit about how you guys met, a little bit about your backgrounds and where you're from, your family, and those dynamics, if you would.
Yeah. Well, I was a kid who grew up in a military family. So we had lived a number of places, Virginia, California, and we landed in Florida where my parents' roots are. And I had been working in student ministry, and my boss moved and asked me to come with him. And I ended up at this, what seemed small to me, college, University of Louisiana, Monroe. And there was this guy there on staff leading worship. And little did I know he was about to rock my world, change my life.
Yeah, and it's funny because I grew up in the same town, and I lived in the same town all the way until I left for college. So I was born there, grew up there, and stayed there all the way up until I left for college. And so it's a little different than Mary kind of bouncing all over the place with the military. So I was definitely kind of a homegrown, stayed at home, didn't really get out much, kind of a person. So, yeah.
So you guys, she moved all over. You were a small town boy. What the heck made y'all want to go to San Francisco? I mean, I can't hardly think of two people, from small town America, saying, hey, we must go to San Francisco. Because I think y'all had at one time, thought that you felt to go to China. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Now, for me, I had spent a few years living out here as a child, and so about age 8 to 12, and so I have always felt a connection out here and loved it out here. There was a school out here I wanted to go to, and I was thinking for postgraduate work, and so that had kind of always been a place. This had always been a place I would hope to land. Maybe not long term, but I was thinking I would spend some time here.
So what was it about the Bay Area, Mary, that you just said, I got to get back? I mean, was it the diversity of people? Was it, the high tech world? I mean.
Yeah, it's not, for my selfish reasons, it's just beautiful. And I think that you can live a lot of different ways and it'd be okay, right? Things just don't, like my daughter, she's in middle school, got her hair cut really short. And I was just thinking, if I had done that in the middle school I went to, it's such a thing, like such a hard thing to do, to be so out there. Whereas here, like, you just don't stand out. The one time I remember seeing people stop on the street and like turn and look at somebody walking by was, there was a man in a full genie costume. full on genie costume. And that was the one time I saw people stop, turn their head and look. I mean, literally there are times people walking naked, people aren't turning their head, but so there's not much, that you can, for the good and the bad, right? But there's not much that you can do here that, would keep people, that
shocked them. There's not much shock out in San Fran, right?
Yeah.
And so, what was your story about going to California and San Francisco, Brad? Small town boy, I forget the song, but I know it's like John Cougar, right? I hear that in a small town. And I'm not going to sing as your worship leader. Y'all just heckle me, but what was it? Were you just following Mary, or?
No, for me, as far as just from my personal faith, I became a Christ follower in high school. For me, that carried with me into college. And then, so it was in college, I went on a couple of different mission trips and whatnot. And then it was just kind of through some of those, and just as I kind of grew and read the Bible, I just really felt this call that God wanted me to be a blessing to those around me and to those in the world. And for me, that looked like China at that point, in college. And I just really felt like that was where God wanted me to go and invest my life and invest my time, my finances, and to be a blessing to people in China. And so my plan was actually to come out to the Bay Area and go to seminary out here and get a degree that would be useful in doing something like that. And then when I met Mary, she kind of had that same draw towards China and Asia and that area, and that same kind of mission to be a blessing to those people. And so that was where we kind of met and kind of had that in common. But then San Francisco, a good friend of mine from college, Ben, sent me a message on Facebook one day, private message, and was like, "Hey man, we're going to be out to San Francisco to start a church downtown, and we want you to come be at the church." And so I had never thought about that. It was kind of just apart from my just anything I'd thought about.
Yeah. Now, at this point, we had been married about 7 years. And so prior to this, we had said, before we got married, we said, God, here's our yes. And so we've always said our yes is on the table. Like, we don't know what God's going to ask, but we've already said yes. That's who we want to be. And it might scare us, but we just knew we didn't want to have some wavering back and forth. So we decided, let's say yes before he asks, so that we don't chicken out. And
wow.
So we really thought, like, after a certain 2 years after we got married, we thought we'd go overseas, work with some friends of ours. And so then there was some life situations. I'm so sorry, that's my dog howling.
What kind of dog is it?
She's a mix between a husky and a oh my God.
Baby doll. She needs some loving.
She's like, why are you talking and not talking to me? And so we thought, but then this circumstances happened that kept us in Florida, in my hometown. It's really a wonderful area. It's Gulf Breeze, Florida. It's so beautiful. It's as beautiful as it sounds it is, like it is. It's a walkable community, and really living the good life here. But for me, it was my hometown. I was like, I can't believe this is where I am. Like, I'm the one who wants to go to China. And so the things that were keeping us there slowly melted away. Those seasons ended. So we thought, this is the time. And so we started praying, and we started the application process with the mission board that we wanted to work with. And we got about halfway through the application process. We had a role already written up for us. And we just felt a lot of clarity that we were to stay where we were. And that was hard for me.
Yeah.
So, like, we had the beautiful house, we had the dog, the cat, the kids, like, kind of the picture perfect American life.
Norman Rockwell, right? Something right out of Norman Rockwell, yeah.
Yeah, so, but I just felt like, okay, we said yes to whatever. And maybe this is our whatever. And, and I wanted, maybe for me, I think, I realized, like, I did have stipulations on the whatever. And so it was good. It was good to really lean into where God had us. And we were part of a great church who had great vision, was doing great things, still is. But so we were like, okay, this is where we are. And then I think about a year later is when we got the email from Ben, and it totally disrupted our world. So.
Yeah. And then like just San Francisco, so at first I was like, well, I've never thought about San Francisco. And so, so we spent some time kind of researching and then praying about it and talking to other people that we really respected, their opinion, that we thought had lots of wisdom. And the more we researched San Francisco, just realizing that there are so, I don't know where I heard this, but I think the highest percentage of like Chinese outside of China is San Francisco. Is that right?
That sounds right.
Yeah, I feel like I
would
heard
believe that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so for me, like I was like, this is crazy. And so I came out with a group to visit the city. Just in my first time here, just walking through even just some of the just regular neighborhoods, you just realize you're like, I feel like I'm in China. I feel like and just realizing there's such diversity here. There's just such a richness to culture and such a
creative energy.
Yeah, such a creative energy here that's just really, really.
There really is, and I love the fact that you guys were willing to step out because it sounded like everything was going well, in your life. I mean, had you had some kids already at that time then?
So at that point, we had 2 kids, and in fact, the market, this is after 2008, the market had crashed, and we love real estate, so we bought a 4-unit rental property, and we're, excited to get going with that, and really that was just months before Ben reached out to us. And so then, of course, we actually had not hit the bottom. We thought it was the bottom of the market. The market went farther, right? And so at that point, we were upside down on the property, and which was not a problem with our long-term. We wanted to hold the property. It was going to be a cash flow property. So that was fine until you're ready to move. And we just did not want to manage a property across country. And so at that point, we were just praying, Lord, how are we going to not have to bring cash to the table to close out this property? We want to sell this property and not have to bring cash to the table. So, within a month, we had all 4 of our tenants move out. And it makes us sound like terrible landlords. And it was all unexpected. And, and it was upsetting. And so, that was I don't know, September, October. And, we knew that we wouldn't refill those units until tax check. And so that neighborhood, that's when they'll make their next financial move heading into Christmas. And so it was kind of discouraging. And then one day, I'm at my homeschool co-op group, and I get this call from Brad, and he says, Mary, the property burned down. And I had this panic, this absolute panic for about 5 seconds. And then I remembered, I was like, wait, we have property insurance.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
I mean, you have all these years of paying for property insurance. You don't actually ever expect to use it. In Florida,
and you hope never to use it, but hey.
Right. Occasionally here and there with a hurricane, you're going to get a new roof or something, but really you're not expecting to cash in on that baby. And so we actually, it was considered, it was one of the first cold nights of the year. Someone had broken in, put a candle in the middle that had caught fire, but it was considered arson by definition. It was a whole investigation. I was nervous because I'm like, we benefited. It paid off our mortgage.
Right.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I mean, we weren't like rolling in it wasn't like we were like Scrooge McDuck and swimming in money. It
paid off the mortgage.
Yeah. It was enough just to pay off the mortgage,
but we didn't have to bring cash to the table.
Wow. Who would have thought that, 2 people following, saying yes to God. All right. Yes, God. And then something like that could happen to facilitate that move. That must have given you a lot of confirmation, huh?
Yes, yes. And then, but it's still the bottom of the market. We owned another house, the house we were living in. And, the values had gone down. It wasn't a great time to sell. Thankfully, we had paid a lot extra on the house. We got some Dave Ramsey influence in our life. And so we weren't upside down on it, but it was a slow time to be trying to sell a house. And, so it was actually, so full year passes, nothing's happening with our house on the market. And we actually come out here and it's the month before, it's time to sign a lease.
Yeah, it's go time.
And so that lease was how much? $3,500 a month?
Yeah.
For a 2-bedroom. Yeah. This is 9 years ago.
Yeah, this is 9 years ago.
So we come out and we are still own a house that we're going to pay a mortgage on, and we're going to sign this lease. But we really believe in, and we still get scared, so I don't want to sound like we're not scared when we do these things, but in the Bible, God tells the Israelites to cross, and the water isn't parted yet. They actually walk into water, and I always think about that. Their feet got wet. They didn't see how God was going to make it work, but they stepped into the water, and then the water parted. So we're signing our lease, and the call literally comes in that an offer has been made and accepted, and it was like,
yeah, no joke. Like, we are signing the lease. Our realtor is calling us. She goes through to our voicemail. We check the message afterwards, and she was saying someone accepted.
Our counter offer.
Yeah, our offer.
Which we honestly, we had done that several times. We had done some back and forth already. So you know how it is in real estate. That doesn't, just because you do a counter offer doesn't mean anything's going to happen.
Right.
So.
Until they show up at the table with the check and that check clears, it could still go south. So Brad is in pharmacy. He, gets a job out there. He's also, I guess, working in the church. Tell us about how that whole transition. So, you guys move out there, you sign the deal, the miraculous things happen. I mean, never heard of somebody saying that a blessing was something burning down, but hey.
Right.
The things we never expect. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, we moved out here, Brad had no job, and that was because, of course, they chose to do an audit on he had to retake his board because California and Florida won't cooperate with each other or anybody else.
Yeah, at the time there was not reciprocity between the states with the licensing. So I had to retake the state board. I had to retake the federal exam and the state exam here in California. And so was a big deal. But then they would do these random audits of the pharmacy exams, which would delay scores by up to 90 days. And so we moved out here. I'd taken the exam. I had no idea if I'd pass. I hope that I'd pass. I've been practicing pharmacy at that point for six years or so.
He was studying for months though, because it's like taking the bar exam again. You don't remember everything.
I can't imagine having to take it again after you've already passed it. I mean, there must have been a lot of anxiousness and man.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, you get out, and there's a lot of things that change, or you focus in a certain area, but the exam, it's a comprehensive sort of thing. And so we moved out here. I didn't even know if I had passed, but I came out on a trip just to kind of pound the pavement and go meet different pharmacy directors. Pharmacies.
Cold walk into pharmacies to meet with the director, because the recruiter here said you'll never get a job in the city. Everybody wants to work in the city. You won't get a job in the city.
Yeah, and so, but I really feel like God gave me favor with the place where I currently work. The director at the time, I called ahead of time and spoke with her on the phone, and I was just like, hey, I'm going to be moving to the city, and I'm just, I just want to just come by and just meet you and say hello and drop off my resume. And so, at that time, I still didn't have a license in California, but she still gave me, 15 minutes of her time. So I went over there and met with her, and then I could tell in the meeting that it wasn't just like, hey, nice to meet you. It was really kind of an informal kind of an interview. I think just her trying to get a good idea. She thought I would be a good fit where they were, and so yeah, so she told me, she's like, let me know when you get your scores in, because, and then let's talk again.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so,
and we needed the pharmacy job. Ben had raised enough money to pay us $1,000 a month, but you can imagine with a $3,500 rent, how far that went.
yeah.
And so, yeah. So
to the 10th, right? The 10th. You're like, okay, what next?
Yeah, so we've moved out here. He finally gets the word that he has passed his board exam, so he can actually, he's employable now. And so he follows up with her, and she says, so we're trying to figure out what kind of schedule where he can lead worship every week, build up the team, do all the things he's got to do, and also make enough for our family.
Yeah, because at that point we didn't have a permanent location where we could meet, so we were setting up and tearing down all of this stuff every week for church. So my Sunday mornings would have to start at like 5, and getting our 18-foot van, our 15 passenger van and 18-foot trailer with all of our equipment and, church in a box, so to speak. Wow. Driving through all these little nooks and crannies of downtown San Francisco. So I originally was just going to apply for a part-time job at the hospital.
That's all they had available.
And so I told her, but then she saw that in Florida I'd worked graveyard shift at the hospital, and she said, well, we have a graveyard shift position open. Would you be willing to work that here? And I was like, well, I would, but I can't do a full 7 because I need that Sunday morning to do this thing. I can't just go right after work and go do that, which I did do a couple of times. And, so she's like, well, would you be willing to to work 6 days instead of only 6 instead of 7? And so for me, it was a perfect fit for what we needed, in that season of life. And so, yeah, I just really felt like it was just God putting those little pieces together,
And that's not a standard schedule. It was not at the time a standard schedule at that hospital.
Yeah.
So, the not 6 on 8 off, even the 7-7, I think.
So how long did you guys do the kind of church in the box, if you will? Because I know I heard a story about how Hillsong New York did that. At first they would meet at a club, nightclub, and they would shut down the club and they would open the place up to actually do church, and people were like, what the heck is going on? So how long was that you guys actually did that mobile church?
We did that for about 8 months. Wow. And then
we were at the W Hotel, so we'd have the ballroom sometimes, and sometimes we get bumped to the roof, a tent up in the roof.
Huh.
Yeah. So but we did that for 8 months, and then we were able to get a location a couple blocks down the road in the basement of another building, and we were there for
3 years.
Yeah, for 3 years.
We had a 3-year lease there, and it's really the heart of San Francisco's downtown. Just an amazing location in the basement of a building. It truly is miraculous to get a permanent space. Churches meet for years, setting up and tearing down. There's churches older than us in San Francisco who are still setting up and tearing down with a much larger congregation. So we feel very spoiled in that. Brad was having to drive this van and trailer in downtown San Francisco, back it up into this little tiny alleyway. All the firemen would come out and stand there with their arms crossed and watch him do it, kind of laughing.
Yeah,
thinking he was going to hit something. Who's this boy? He thinks he's from Louisiana, going to be able to drive in San Francisco. That's hilarious. So tell us what's happening in the congregation now. It's growing. People's lives are changing. What's going on?
Yeah. So I was on staff and was the worship pastor there for 7 years or so. And actually a year ago, I actually stepped down from that position just because it had hit a point where it was essentially like doing 2 full-time jobs. Just the amount of thought and, I have to put into it. And so, I just hit a point where I felt like it had grown to a point where I could step away from it, and also where I really I just needed to rest. And so, it's just continued to grow. Like as far as the church, I think they're running around 700. Yeah, around 700 or so now.
Nice.
Last time I checked, and so
and we have another location now. It's another basement, but this basement has some windows, so we're moving up in the world.
Yeah.
Even that is miraculous. We are underneath Market Street, essentially. Market Street's the main San Francisco street in San Francisco. We were competing with a CrossFit gym. We did not expect to win. And
the room was previously, that area in that building was previously the trash room.
Literally the trash room.
Yeah, where people would dump all their garbage.
It's so beautiful. I wish I could show you pictures. It really is.
That makes sense, right? Because a lot of people think you got to go to church and have all your stuff cleaned up. And I'm sure the message there in San Fran, as well as other places, are just come as you are with all your trash, right? And, that's a good thing. I mean, good thing it is a trash room because we can feel at home because we all got a bunch of trash, whether we admit it or not,
Yeah. And I always love the picture, just the picture that represents of taking this previous room that used to be the garbage room, and now it's this amazing space that, I mean, I would put up against any nice space in the city. I mean, it's a really great space. They've done a great job with it, and people's lives are being changed there. Like, people are going there and like they're having value added to their life, and they're being encouraged, and and so it's a really great picture on lots of levels.
And what's happening here is so much larger than Epic. And so obviously God has been working in this city from the very beginning, and we just got to step into it at a certain point in time, and honestly a really fun time, and the way that God is moving in people's lives. And it's exciting what's happening. Like, many churches are growing, many churches are thriving. So it's not just Epic, it's what God is doing here in San Francisco. And so it's so fun that we get to be part of it and part of what he's doing here. And I know these, and but I do think as a strategic point, there's what I call the Isaiah, who will go for me? And I do think that as believers, if you have that open call and God has given you the resources to be in a city, I really strongly believe believers should consider being in cities. God brings the nations to cities. And there's two ways that God blesses the world. One is, you see in the Old Testament, is God scattering the Israelites out. He blessed the world through that. His name was made great through their scattering. But his name was also made great through Jerusalem, which was the center of the world, the crossroads that all the major trading routes went through. He brought the nations there. And so let's look at where God is bringing the nations. Let's be there. Let's be at the heart of culture. Let's not flee from it. Let's not run from it. Let's run to it. Let's run to what God is doing. Good. And it's a disproportionate amount of ripples that happen from cities. Now, if God has called you to be in your small town, be there. Be 100% there. Love your people there. Love your neighbors there. But I think that sometimes I get the feeling that people think there's a lot of darkness in the city to run from, and that's just not true. There's so much movement of God here because humans are made in the image of God. There's so much image of God in cities because there's so many people. That's right. And I get to be around that all the time.
What a great way to look at it. I think so often we want to be around people that just look and think and dress and act and believe like us, but your story is so true, right? If you look back at where Paul was, these important cities, that were trading places and so forth, just like San Francisco. When you have a large amount of people, you've got a large amount of influence that you can, so just to hear you talk about how other churches are growing and thriving, I think that's what so often people from the outside looking in say is, man, I don't know about this old dormant religion. And they really don't know the freedom. If I listen to your story and I listen to how you guys stepped out and overcame, and I mean, it's Christ in you. It's not you, but just that you could say that all that's a coincidence, but I mean, it would be a real long shot when you look at how that would be a coincidence, right? And I mean, I've had countless events like that happen in my life. Just recently, I had one this weekend. So how did you guys shift gears? You move here, you walk out in faith, he has to take new boards, and then you have somebody talk to you about this concept also called health coaching. So that's how we met, right? Through this health coaching crazy bunch of folks. So a girl, Leslie, that I interviewed before, had opened up and done something, and you guys have killed it with that. Tell folks a little bit about your passion not only with the spiritual health, but physical health.
Yeah, well, it started almost 5 years ago. We had just added weight, and I remember reading this article. The average adult gains 1 to 2 pounds a year, and I did some quick mental calculations, and I thought I have done exactly that. And so my friend Leslie, who the three of us all know, she has started health coaching. I trusted her. I didn't even know what the thing was with it. I didn't know. I was just like, okay, I'm signing up as soon as I get home from my trip this summer. And I signed up, and it was easy, and I worked. And, at that time she had offered, coaching to me as a career opportunity, as a business. And it wasn't a season I wanted to step into it. I was running another homeschooling business. And, I just felt like I didn't want to take that on, but it did become the plan in my mind, in the sense of when I need to make real money,
with $3,500 in rent. Yeah. I mean, so you watching that are complaining about your $1,000 mortgage or your $800 mortgage.
Yeah.
3,500 2 bedroom 8 years ago. I'm sure it's went up.
Yeah. And so, when Brad stepped out of leading worship at Epic and was just stepping into a season of rest, we just took some time to pray and not feel like immediately jumping into the next thing. And at that point, I kind of had coaching on my mind, and a friend of mine said, and you have to remember it was 4 years since we had lost our weight. So no one looked at us as people who had lost weight or that kind of thing. But a friend of mine said, I was trying to talk her into getting a dating profile. And she said, if you coach me, I'll get a dating profile. And I said, done. And that was April. So we had and I felt like, okay, I can't have a client just drop in my lap and not run with this amazing business. I have it helps that I, have so many friends that I'm close to who are in the health coaching business. So I feel like I've seen it up close. I've seen the integrity of the company, seen the integrity of the people. I see the big picture that people have for serving in this company. And so it was easy for me to step into that. I think it would have taken me longer if I didn't know all those things. To me, it really matters who you're working with, choosing the right team. Being a part of Epic, it was about choosing the right team. It was the right people. We could have done all kinds of things. It didn't have to be San Francisco. It could have been something else, but it was the right people.
Yeah.
Know what God was doing.
What did you think when she was doing this, Brad? Did you think she'd been abducted by aliens, or
No.
not really, because of who was involved with it?
No, at that point, we had some conversations with Leslie had been, she would bring it up every now and then, every year or so to us. And
she loved us enough to want us to make real money.
Yeah. And so when Mary started doing it, it wasn't shocking. I was like, oh, okay, well, it's not that shocking. And
you were all in from the beginning.
Yeah. And I mean, because I had seen how valuable it is, not just financially, but just seeing just good it has done in our friends' lives who have been coaches, and I mean, just the physical stuff and even financially. And so,
and mentally too.
Yeah, and mentally, just lots of different areas where it's been very, very good, And so for us, and even from a pharmacy perspective, I mean, I've been a pharmacist for 15, or I don't know, it's been a long time. So probably 15 years now, but it's, just spending all that time working on that side of healthcare, really that's more reactive and more just like I always picture it being like the little boy at the dam, just kind of plugging the holes of everything leaking and just reacting to these things that have been preventable and in a lot of ways.
Really sick care, right, versus health care. Really,
exactly. But yeah, and so for this, like to step in on the front end and to be able to help people, actually give them the tools to actually do something on the front end to mitigate some of that, or stop, or even like totally change their trajectory of their health and get off of medications. And which is funny as a pharmacist, but like, I want to help people get off of medications and reverse some of these things,
And it happens. I can't tell you how many I've had, and I'm sure you've had clients, y'all have coached for a few, it's amazing when you see people get free of that.
Yeah.
And real close friend of mine dealing with it as we speak. So I don't know what happened to this microphone. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, and too, Jack, one of the things that has been really great is just that there's such a culture and a heart in the community of what we do, of like our goal is to add value to people's lives. Mm-hmm. And so like, and the way it's all set up is like, you know, I don't win unless my clients win, right? And so I love that, like, even just the way that they motivate you extrinsically is to help people, that you really have to add value to people's lives, and the way that you win is by helping other people to win.
Yeah.
Well, you guys definitely have just a servant's heart. What is it, a message and a synopsis and summary that you want people to take from your journey of saying yes and being open and pliable? What is the message you think more people need to hear that might be knocking on the door with this thing called faith, and they might have a little fear and they're like, I don't want to join one of those, or, you know, the people that, you know, act too strange. What do you want to shine light on? Because y'all are just a beacon of light already, but, you know, what's a synopsis and landing this plane you want the audience to know about you all and your faith and hope?
I would grab my hands something different. Just say your next yes, you know. And so so you may not be a Christ follower, you may not even believe in God, but if there's even just the tiniest glimmer of prompting, just take that next yes, you know. And if you've been following Christ for 30 years, you know, take your next yes. You know, Stop debating with the Lord. He's been good. He's been faithful to you all these years. Take your next yes.
Yeah, a lot of times we look at it as being this huge leap of faith instead of just being a small step of faith, you know. And so it's that next step, you know, just walking in that next little bit of light that you have to walk in. So
yeah, exactly. That's good. The whole leap thing. Yeah, and in my image in my mind of faith is always Indiana Jones walking over the chasm. The stone doesn't show up till he steps out and puts his weight down, and it's one step at a time.
Yeah, well,
and one step of faith at a time.
Yeah, and going back to in the Bible where, you know, the Israelites were walking through the river, the Jordan River, during that time when they were going into this promised land. That, you know, I think I remember that time of year the river was at flood stage.
Oh,
so
right.
it wasn't some gentle little river; it was at flood stage.
Yeah.
So and they had to step in. And, you know, part of their next step was stepping in, getting their feet wet, feeling the pull of the river, and trying to pull them away, you know, and then, you know.
We're not good at winding it up. We're preaching out of the sermon.
Yeah.
Next step. Take your next.
Yeah, just that next step.
There you go.
Next step. Well, I tell you, I hope you guys have gotten something out of today, because I have. I mean, these young couple, if they haven't tested you to say yes, I don't know what. You might not be awake yet, but thank you two. Thank you for your hearts.
Yeah, thank you, Jack.
Your ability to say yes and your ability to change people's lives. And that's really what we do on this show, is we really want to help you through the valleys of life, whether you're dealing with something financially, health, relationally, spiritually, whatever that case is, you know. Say yes when somebody makes the offer to help you along. Because really what they're doing is the way that God's reaching down through a human or through an opportunity or through a situation and saying, I got you. Just hold on tight and walk alongside of me. And he'll make a way. It ain't always going to end up the way you might think it is. But look at these two and the fruit in their lives. And doesn't mean they're perfect, but it just does mean that they're walking in the perfect design that God's asked them for their life. So we'll see you guys on Thursday. And we talk to the real D. Martin, who talks about living in a little town in Macomb, Mississippi. It's going to be a little different than this interview, but it'll be definitely entertaining nonetheless. And you guys have a blessed day. Thank you, Brad and Mary, for your time.
Thank you.
And we'll see you guys on the next video.